There's a judge in Kentucky that I must applaud. This brother, an African-American sitting criminal courts judge, was having a trial in this courtroom of an African-American defendant charged with a crime. And the jury pool, after being paneled and chosen, and the jury was set in the box on 2 separate occasions for the same case, the juries were all white. So the judge decided to dismiss both juries, and he said that the jury should reflect the racial makeup of the city and the county in which the court sits, and that it's unconstitutional in his mind that an African American should have to be judged by an all-white jury. But he's not the first to say that. That even was said by the Supreme Court once in America, that it is unconstitutional for an all-white jury to sit in judgment of another person of color because there is some biases there.
Okay, so what you're saying is what this judge is doing, which is basically reverse preemptive jury nullification is fine, and that let's flip the table, shall we, for a minute? And I have many points to make about this. If we had a white judge with a white defendant and an all-black jury, can you imagine what would happen? The uproar from the Black Lives Matter movement and all the rest of them, if this had been a reverse situation. I mean, it's not right regardless. Justice should be blind. And hang on a minute. Jury pools are made up of registered voters. Whites tend to be more registered voters than African Americans. As well, whites make more up of a population generally than African Americans. I don't know the racial makeup of this town, but you cannot nullify a jury and think that white people cannot judge black people fairly. No, that's ridiculous.
That's not what happened, Ms. Box.
And that's actually racist.
There are cities where you have as high as 45% African American, then you still get all white juries. What this judge is saying is that the jury pool should not be chosen just from voter registration rolls. It should be chosen by driver's license also. That way we can begin to choose people that racially diversely make up the entire city and county what that court sits in. It is only fair and right. Because what you said about a white guy being judged by all black jury, that has never happened in America. So we can get away from that. Okay, that's a fallacy.
But hang on a minute. But the point is still valid. You cannot say that a group of white people do not have the wherewithal to judge a black person fairly. This is the problem.
That's not what he said.
Hang on a minute.
He said an all-white jury.
This is the problem.
Is unfair.
This is the problem with the culture. We keep dividing instead of thinking of ways we can come together.
Box, wait a minute, Ms. Box. Did you white people say that when O.J. Simpson had an all-black jury?
That was called jury nullification.
He had an all-black jury, and they set that brother free.
He did not have an all-black jury.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
He had all-black jury.
No, there was
One
not.
woman who was Hispanic and half black.
No,
he had an all-black jury.
as far as I remember, there were 3 whites or something.
No, there were not 3 whites on the jury.
And that would be called jury nullification, which this judge is trying to do in reverse preemptively.
And you still say O.J. guilty?
Kinda is. He cut off his wife's head practically.
He was found not guilty by a court.
And he's rotting in prison now, thank God.
Not for what he did, because of who he is.
You know what, Quanell? This is a special day for me because I have it on Foxy. I told everybody that I'm in remission. I am cancer-free. And I want to thank everybody that has prayed for me, that has come up to me and been so kind to me. And you know what? The immigrant-free day. I think about these individuals. You know something? When you do what I did, when you work hard, when you do what you're told, when you go where you're supposed to go, and you pray to God, then good things happen. If one day you decide you're going to do none of those things, then what may happen is exactly what happened to these so-called immigrants, many of them illegal, who decided not to go to work a particular day to somehow get across some kind of message. They get fired the next day. Welcome to America.
Matt, you know, I am happy that you're in remission. To God be the glory. But it is amazing how you could beat cancer and be in remission and your heart still be so cold and hard. It is amazing how you would speak that way about immigrants when you call them so-called immigrants. You're right, they're so-called immigrants.
Some are illegal.
Because they're only coming back home. Texas, Arizona, and California were stole from the Mexicans. So they're so-called immigrants because they're coming back home. And when you speak about if you work hard and do the right thing and be good to people, well, guess what? That's not the history or the legacy of your ancestors.
You got to come through the front door.
White folk didn't come through the front door. White folk kicked open the back door and killed everything else in between to conquer America.
Why do you,
they were not good to people that they met.
You're trying
they didn't show hospitality to the Indians.
You're trying to avoid what we're talking about.
They didn't do that.
Here.
They weren't hospitable.
You're trying to avoid what we're talking about here, and you're going to go back 200-300 years.
What I'm trying to do.
Why don't we talk about what's taking place over the weekend?
What I'm trying to do is try to tell white people like you, stop throwing rocks at the immigrants when you all live in a glass house. You all didn't come to America the right way or
You do
the godly
things-
way.
Yes, you do. You do the things the correct way. And in 2017, the correct thing to do is come through the front door. And these are people that snuck into this country. And so we're all supposed to allow that to happen? That's not how it works. You're not going to get what you're looking for.
And
You
Matt,
got to work. You got to come
Matt,
through the front door. I understand that.
I'm saying they should not have to sneak back into a territory that the legacy of that territory belonged to their own people. But let's just say for the sake of the law, they broke the law. Okay, I'll give you that. But at the end of the day, brother, where is the human compassion that the ancestors of Indians showed your community? You all won't show that to nobody else. What you
Cornell,
want it all showed to you.
Let's stay in America. There was no America back, what you're talking about. You're taking something and trying to turn it into something that it's not. Let's talk about the rules and the laws that exist in the United States of America.
This is America, but America the beautiful has been America the ugly toward too many people of color. And all we want is the same thing you all enjoy, the complexion for the protection.
Well, I
That's
tell you
what, all got in America. We don't have that.
Do that when somebody crosses your property line and wants to come into your home and sit down in your living room and eat out of your refrigerator without ever asking you or without being a member of your family.
All the immigrants are not doing that. So stop that, brother. That's a hype. That's a lie, and it's racist, man.
It's not a hype. It's exactly what they want.
They're not all doing that.
It's always funny to me when a white person says that black people can be racist towards them or anyone in the minority groups, because that means that you don't even know then again what racism is. Because you cannot be a minority and be racist towards people who have literally all the power, who have been discriminating against your community through and through. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what you're saying is contradicting to your statement, because she says that having an all-white jury judging a black person is okay, but having an all-black jury judging a white person is kind of racist. Or black people refusing to have an all-white jury judge against a black person is racist, because apparently black people do not trust white people enough to allow them or to let them judge a black person. And then she calls that what do you mean? Have you seen your history? Have you read your history, darling? Have you gone through the books? Then how can black people be racist when they are literally asking for you to treat them fairly? Because as you have heard what Cornell is saying, he's saying that you cannot have a jury that is made up of people who do not exist in a certain demographic. It makes sense, because if you're a white person who has never lived with a black person, does not have black neighbors, when they go to school, they literally have very few to no interactions with black people. How is that person supposed to make any kind of judgment towards a black person if in their own demographic, wherever they are living, there's little to no black people? It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. You can have mixed people, but it doesn't make sense to have an all-white people judge a black man or a black woman when they even haven't had enough interaction. You don't even know the kind of history that they've been learning. They've been taught in school. You don't know their own history, what they've been doing. You don't know the kinds of things that they have been taught. You don't know if they're racist, they're not, if they support the black community, if they don't. You don't know if they have an agenda towards the black people. Yet, instead of listening to what Cornell is saying, you go and rush towards racism, that black people can be racist towards white people. What? Then the other issue about immigration, one thing that white people do not understand is the grace that they were given to live in America, because Columbus did not discover America. He found people living in America. Then he invaded it after he saw that people there were actually kind and allowed him to get some of the things that he wanted. He wanted gold or oil or plants, whatever he wanted. They said, yeah, sure, take. And then he saw them as just he could take advantage of them. Instead of seeing the goodness and learning from the goodness and the kindness of these people's hearts, he took advantage of it, then invaded, then tortured these people, then took their land, then killed most of them, and suppressed these people into certain areas in the country so that he can take up the bigger chunk of what America is today. And what white people do not understand is the kind of grace that the Native Americans showed Columbus is something that they do not ever want to ever do. They never want to accept that they weren't existing in America, that America isn't theirs. They don't want to accept that the doors weren't actually fully open for them. The natives just wanted you to come, visit, then go back, but you invaded. Yet when immigrants ask for an opportunity, you treat them like garbage.
Okay, here's a new one. In Dallas, 4 white folks have filed a federal lawsuit saying that the way the commissioners are set up there discriminates against white people. And I know people are going to be shocked. But, you know, I do think, and I think you know this, over the next 5 or 10 years, it's going to become part of the conversation as the number of white people start to shrink versus the expansion of minorities, Hispanics, African Americans, Asians, folks from the Middle East, whatever. That white folks are going to start saying, wait a second, if we become a minority, well, then why don't we have the same complaints that minorities do now?
Well, you have to understand that the 1964 Civil Rights Act that was signed into law by Lyndon Baines Johnson, then president, when he signed that into law, it was to help those who were historically discriminated against in the voting process, those who were stopped from voting because of their skin color. And then they had certain laws on the books called race codes that certain blacks, not all blacks in the South, had to pass certain examinations and tests before they could even have a right to vote. The problem with white people in Dallas filing that lawsuit, white people do not have a documented history of historically being disadvantaged in the election and the voting process.
You don't think the way school kids are selected now could be viewed as discrimination? You don't think that single-member districts can be construed as violating against someone else? Look, I got to tell you, it's this whole voting thing. You're talking about 50 years ago, black folks couldn't vote. Totally true, right? Totally wrong, totally horrible. But who's stopping anyone from voting today because of the color of their skin?
Well, then why are white folks in Dallas filing that lawsuit?
No, but answer my question. Who is stopping any black person in this country from voting? I hear about voter suppression all the time.
There are many places in the South where white people feel that demographically they're now being outnumbered.
They are.
And so what they're doing, they are suppressing minority votes, because if they don't suppress them, the minorities will outvote them, and whites will now be today what they soon are becoming, the minority. And voting wise, minorities will control the electoral process in America.
Let me ask you one question. And look, I'm not that guy, but why wouldn't it be fair for white people to have the same ethnic or racial argument that black folk or Hispanic folks? Look, I don't believe race should be part of anything. I don't believe race should be part of anything.
Let me tell you why. Because white folk don't have a history of being lynched going to the voting polls.
This is payback.
White folks don't have a history of their churches being bombed because you were teaching black people how to vote. White people don't have a history of having their homes firebombed because they went to a voting poll and voted. Here's the problem. This is what Minister Malcolm X said. This is a case of the chickens coming home to roost. Don't cry now when you got to sip from the same cup that you all gave us to drink from.
All right.
So guess what, baby? Soon you got to deal with what you laid in the ground. Those seeds are growing now, and you'll reap what you sow.
Do you hear this? This is the problem, my friend, is that there's payback you want to do. That's the problem.
It's about payback.
Sure
It's about you all having to deal with the reality that what you sowed in the field, you shall reap what you have sowed.
The only problem with that is I ain't the guy who sowed it.
And guess what? You're going to enjoy those benefits that are coming, baby, whether you like it or not.
We have seen the story of the white journalist who was in remission at the time because he had been affected with cancer, but he got into remission. Right now, he did pass away, unfortunately, RIP. But you can see that Cornell is trying to give him a leaf, like you should learn from what God has done for you. Because if God gave you the ability to be in remission, that means that you're cancer free now, and to be able to be removed from that fear. And yes, it did come back, but at the time he could have taken that opportunity to show the kind of kindness that God gave him. We know about the story of the rich man there was a poor man who owed a rich man. This story is in the Bible. I'm not sure which book, but I do know the story, where a poor man owed a very rich man money. And the poor man also had an even poorer man who owed him money. Yet at the deadline, he went to the rich man and said, I'm sorry, but I wasn't able to raise the money that you needed for me to pay you back. And the rich man said, yeah, it's okay. Like, it's not a problem. No problem. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And instead of showing the same grace to the one who owed him money, the same way he was showed grace, he went on to become very mean, very bad to the other poorer man who owed him money. And this story shows that they're just people who do not quite learn from the goodness that they have been given, or the fairness that they have been exceeded. Because we have seen that white Americans will never accept that they're immigrants in America. They believe that America belongs to them and you cannot tell them anything. Yet when you ask a white person, where are you actually from? You know, the question that they like asking black Americans or black people, where are you actually from? You're black, so you should be from an African country. And a black person says, you know, I'm literally from here. I was born here. I don't know what you're talking about. But if you're asking about my great grandparents, I guess they were from Ghana, they were from Kenya, they were from South Africa, and you say a country's name in Africa or whatever you're from. And when you ask white people, where are you actually from? You would think that they will actually say America, but most of them actually go to Europe. They say, you know, I'm from Europe, I'm European. So what are you doing in America then, darling? Because you have a problem with having black people exist in your country, the country that you believe belongs to you. Yet, when you're asked where you came from, you say you come from a European country somewhere. Then it means that if black people, you want black people to go or to leave, you should leave too, because country is not yours. Same way that man talks about how, you know, if you want to get into America, you have to get through the front door. Your people didn't go through the front door. Your people did not follow any rules. They actually forced themselves into the country, then made up rules as they went. They then again showed complete honor. They were so bad to the natives and to every other people that existed in America at the time, and every other country that they chose to invade. They were what they were. And instead of learning from this, because we know about Germany, we know that Germany had, you know, they had Hitler. And after the war, they actually went again and they changed their national anthem, because their national anthem represented something that they did not stand for, especially in this new age. Has America done that? No, it still wants to hold on to its racist values, its racist foundation, because you know that we've had the American anthem, and there are so many words, there's so many things, there's so many. You look at the history, you'll find about it. It's very racist and it's very back, but it's very, very not forward thinking, the opposite of forward thinking. Like, you're just thinking in reverse. Because if you are saying that black people should get over history, why aren't you changing some of the things that happened in history? Yes, right now black people have the right to vote, but did you give them the right to vote, or did they fight for you to allow them to have a seat at the table? It's not like you woke up one day and decided, you know what, you're not going to be slaves anymore. I'm just going to give you the right to be whatever you want. No, that's not what happened. White people like acting like they're these saints and they're these amazing people that allow black Americans to do whatever they want. We allow you to. Now you have the ability to, because we allowed you to. If you are allowing people to do that and you have such a word coming out of your mouth, it means that you are still racist. Because why are you allowing people who are existing in a country that they literally own? They are in. You cannot talk about white history, you cannot talk about American history, you cannot talk about black history without talking about black people. You cannot talk about American history without talking about black people. Black people have built America from the ground up. You might want to argue, it's fine. You can't argue with me, but you can try in the comments. It's okay. But I'm sure there are going to be black people who are going to teach you a thing or two if you don't believe it. But you check the history books, you'll find all about it. Black people have built America from the ground up. They have done things that were buried, and white people have done things that were buried as well, so that they are not seen as the monsters that they are. And the fact that they are still holding on to the same things that they used to do is crazy. Because if you want Black people to move on, why haven't you? You want people to get on living, to forget about their history, yet you refuse to pay reparations. You want them to not talk about racism. You tell them that they're actually having a victim mindset, yet you don't give them jobs, you don't give them loans, you don't give them the same housing that you give to white people, the same rates in loans that you give to white people, the same opportunities that you give to white people. The rules are made to make sure that a white person will win either way, no matter what. They will win. It doesn't matter. They will win. But that does not mean that there are not white people who are suffering. No. But it means that among the white people who are winning, there are Black people who deserved it more. I'm not saying that you should take everything from white people, but why isn't there an equality into it? Why isn't there equality? Because when a Black person wants to apply for a loan, they have to dress so nicely, they have to wear makeup, they have to present themselves in a nice way so that you can take them seriously. Because already by the color of their skin, whatever in your mind, whatever you've been taught by American history is ingrained inside you. And instead of changing it, no, you still do the same. A white person can wear leggings, sneakers, and a t-shirt or a shirt, they don't care. And they go and they get a much better rate in their loans. White people do the most crimes in America, yet you pin everything towards the Black community. White people depend more on the government, yet the little that Black people depend on, the few that do actually depend on the government, as they should, because your people are also depending on the same as well, you get upset with it as well. You don't want them. You make them feel bad for, trying to get funding from the government, yet your people are doing the same. So, Cornell is asking, can you give people the same kind of fairness, kindness that you were given by the Native Americans? Can you? Right now, white people are kind of scared because they do not know what life would be if Black people are actually the majority and white people go back to being the minority. They're very scared because they do not know what to do, what will happen. So they're now using the law. They're now signing things. They're just going to court each and every day to find a way into, I don't know what they're trying to find, but they're scared because they cannot imagine that they will once be treated the same way that they treated Black people. They're actually scared because they don't know what actually Black people will do when they do have power. Not that they know what Black people will do. They're scared because they do not know what Black people will do. What are we expecting? What will happen? They don't know. And that is very scary. Instead of making amends and actually trying to live well with Black people, you want to continue deporting and continue having these laws that are generally put to go against every other immigrant. You want to vote for a man that will hurt every minority. You want to do things so that you continue suppressing Black people. It's not going to work, but you can try. The change is inevitable, and once it happens, instead of actually trying to live together with Black people, so that when it comes, the inevitable, you will not have to be scared. You want to continue doing the same things that your ancestors did. It's unfortunate and sad. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this particular topic. Do comment your thoughts about what Cornell said, about the interviewers, or about what I said. I'd love to interact with you in the comment section below. I'd love to see you again, so do make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Like and share to your friends and family as we continue to spread the good word together and we continue to learn together. If you'd like to support me, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link down in the description. For everyone who has been supporting me in that way, thank you so much. I appreciate you and I love you so much. I hope to see you next time, so do make sure you come back. Goodbye for now.